when we all were pushed into this new remote world, we realized that this is an opportunity to share in a new way some of that work. So we're really delighted to have you here. And we're very happy to have our guests. I will tell you that these are recorded and posted, and we'll say it again at the end, on the SBCC Foundation website, as Ray says, shared. So always know that if you got just part of today's session or you missed something in the past that you heard about, you can get them there. And so today, what we wanted to tackle was one of the really big issues in our community. And of course, this has been a big issue for a very long time. This is not just due to our current moment, but it has certainly been highlighted in the current moment. And that is the issues around early childhood education and childcare in our community. What people may not know is that Santa Barbara City College has one of the really renowned training programs, not to mention the lab school at SBCC, and a lot of our early childhood educators in our community actually were trained by our faculty at Santa Barbara City College. So we wanted to reach out and give the community a sense of what happens here, and of course what the current moment means and how it complicates that. And so we're very happy to have with us the director of the Orfalea Early Learning Center and the Early Childhood Lab School, which are one in the same, or I should say in the same building there, right across from the main campus. Again, a building that many people don't realize is an SBCC building. But Beth Rizo is with us, and Beth has done this work for I dare say 4 decades of work in this field. And she has been a leader and a teacher and a mentor. She also teaches, in addition to being the director of the center, she also teaches in the early childhood education program at Santa Barbara City College. She was actually one of the first people I met when I began my role with the foundation. Maybe it was because I had 2 young ones and I'd heard the rumor of the fantastic things that happen on the campus. But anyway, a great partner with the foundation and somebody who really has a breadth and depth of knowledge that we thought would be valuable today. So with no further ado, I'm very happy to introduce you to Beth Rizo. Beth, it is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Jeff. And I would also like to welcome all of you and thank you for joining us on, as Jeff said, this Thursday before the long holiday weekend. Jeff, you and your team have made this so smooth, so I'm hoping that it will come off informative and just informative. So I'm going to say hello to the Santa Barbara community, City College community, as well as a special hello to families and children who might be watching from Orfalea Early Learning Center, as well as staff if they happen to tune in. So Orfalea Early Learning Center, I just want to touch on the fact that Jeff mentioned that I've been in this field for 40 years. I have not been the director here at Santa Barbara City College for 40 years. I've been at different programs in Orange County as well as in the Santa Barbara area. But I have been working with children and families for that amount of time. I went through an early childhood education program that was called nursery school education when I first started. So I just wanted to point that out. So Orfalea Early Learning Center, what do we do? We, as Jeff mentioned, we are kind of up the street and in the corner set back. We are a child care facility serving students that attend Santa Barbara City College, faculty and staff who work at Santa Barbara City College, and when space is available, we open to the community, and that is sometimes few and far between, but we try and support. The majority of our enrollment is faculty, staff, and students of Santa Barbara City College. I will say that I can't do this work by myself. I have a very strong team. We have 5 full-time teachers. We're fortunate that we have the lab teaching assistant for the early childhood education's office is here, so she works directly with the students along with our team. She is here throughout the day as well as all my team members. So I just want to acknowledge that it's with this strong team that we're able to do the work that we do. Our role here at City College is twofold. We are a child care program caring for children, as I stated, as well as mentoring and coaching early childhood education students who happen to be enrolled in the foundations class on campus. So they meet on campus about 2 hours once a week, and then they're here with us for about 9 hours each week. And it will look differently this year since they will be assigned with a specific group and a specific teacher in a specific area, since we're not going to be able to commingle children or have large group meetings or areas where children can be together in large groups. We are a play-based environment. We integrate math, science, literacy, and creativity throughout our curriculum. This is to support children's learning as well as help our early childhood education students provide a wide variety of activities when they go out in the field to work in the various child care programs or to go on and further their education. Our goals, I don't know if we can pull that up. Our goals are to promote quality relationships with students, provide an age-appropriate environment, create an atmosphere of trust and respect, and appreciation for diversity. That's very important to our program and to the families and children we work with. We view each child as competent when challenging their growth. We offer learning experience that enhance their active exploration, their social competence, and verbal and nonverbal language development. And I think one of the key ingredients to our program is we recognize the parent as the child's primary teacher and create a respectful atmosphere that supports optimal child care services for students, faculty, staff, and the community. I think what the key to our success is that communication and collaboration with the families that we work with in order to set up a foundation that is respectful. We want parents to feel that they're as important in our program as their children are, because we're all working together. So that's the dynamics we try and establish and work through. We support students, we support success in various areas, but part of that is strengthening the social and emotional well-being of the children we work with, as well as the student teachers we work with, the parents we work with, and the staff. One of the important aspects of our work is taking care of ourselves, which we talk about with parents and student teachers, but we don't always practice in the best way. But we're working on that, and I think during this time of shutdown and being, I don't want to say, well, more isolated than we're used to, that's been a concern of mine. It's just making sure that families know they have resources or can access resources, because being home and not being able to go out, I think it's a little more flexible at this time, but there's still that emotional or social sense that we are missing, especially since humans are wired, our brains are wired for social connection. And this is part of social connection, using a Zoom foundation or being able to talk back and forth using Zoom, but it's not the same as the face-to-face, which is going to be limited come fall semester. I think the collaboration, building the partnerships with families is important part. I mentioned that, and that it is really the key to our success and how we have strengthened and created this program that amplifies, I believe, quality for our community, and also providing a lab school experience for students as they go, once they finish their educational journey. Either they go on to higher education or go out in the community, this community or another community, and work directly with children and families. So we want that to be the essence of understanding that respect and working with families is so important to what we do. So that kind of gives us a little background of what we do in, I don't know, a few minutes that we've been talking. So I want to touch base on what happened mid-March. We shut down very quickly. Many childcare programs in this community, I would say, shut down. The college shut down, university, K-12 shut down. We all moved from seeing people face-to-face or talking face-to-face to all of a sudden, all right, how are we going to make those connections with children, families, work? We recognize that importance. We recognize that connection was what children and families wanted and needed. And I think it was a learning curve for all of us. I think it was a learning curve for student parents. It was a learning curve for our faculty and staff who hadn't taught online before. We had to all learn new ways of technology pretty quickly. But, you know, there was a lot of emails about, you know, we're shutting down and we'll be connecting with you and this is how we can connect. But we found creative ways to work around that, and each teacher took on a different role and different ways of connecting with their primary group of children that were in their classrooms. And as I said, we had Zoom meetings, we used YouTube in some situations, we had circle times, either live on certain days where parents could join and children could join. Some teachers did FaceTime. We tried all different aspects, and sometimes we had, you know, families could join us and other times families couldn't. I think one of the biggest challenges was to support success or try and help students, our student parents successfully get through the semester while having their child at home, while learning to take online classes, and then balancing, if they had a K-12 child at home, teaching. So there were so many roles that as myself as a director and as teachers took on, but the whole role for parents was so foreign and new, and I think we survived. I would like to think that we survived through this process. And as I said, it is a process. And as we move forward, it is going to be completely different than childcare has been in the past. Adults will be wearing masks. Fortunately, we've been wearing masks for a while, so I don't think it's going to be an interruption or a fearful thing for children once we restart. I'm hoping it's not, but adults will, with our face-to-face learning that will take place, we will all be wearing masks. Children, we will not have visitors. We work with many departments on campus that have used us as a lab site to do observations or visit or come in and spend a few hours to meet coursework requirements, and that will not be happening come fall semester. And I'm really looking at fall semester. The teachers and I have been looking at fall semester and just saying, this is for fall semester, and we're hoping it will, it's just for fall semester, and that it becomes more relaxed come spring semester. So some of the new things that will take place come fall is temperature checks will be part of our new routine. Parents it will be one parent that can pick up and drop off. So the parent, the child, staff members, student teachers, myself, we will all have temperature checks. We will have a health log that we ask a few questions and document from parents, staff, and students in order to keep track of, you know, the health and welfare of the children and families, students, and staff that we're working with. That, I think, is going to be the biggest component of what's new for us, since we're very family oriented, and we like the families to come in, and many of the siblings have gone through our program and like to come in and see their teacher or pick up their sibling, and that's going to look very different come fall. The other components are getting through looking at all the guidelines that have been put into place from CDC to Cal OSHA. Well, myself and staff have been looking at different webinars, different ways programs have opened their center or are in the planning stages of reopening. There is so much information and so many resources. We're almost on overload at this time. There's just so much you can take in that I've been pausing between the webinars I attend to kind of take the little tidbits that will work for our program. And each of the facilities or childcare programs in our community are going to do this differently based on the needs of their families and children. But through Department of Social Services, community care licensing, the guidelines state there will not be more than 10 in a group for the children we're working with. So it's one adult right now to 10 children, and that's for children age 2 to 5. For children younger than that, it is going to be it's going to be a 1-to-4 ratio. So that's going to look different. Our classroom size has been different in the past, so it's going to look different. It's going to be fine. I'm very optimistic that myself and our team can put this together. We have great support from the early childhood department. Devonna Hawkins and Winky, Helen Cooper, Winky, will be there along with us. We can get through this together. Every Child California, if we can pull up that slide, released this document yesterday that gives us a basic step-by-step information on what will need to take place as we reopen. I don't know where I did with my glasses, but that's all right. We have a checklist to go through. There's different tasks that are listed on that. I have to say, staff and I have been working together since probably mid-May through, I'd say, mid-June, to think about what we're going to do, what it's going to look like, what we need to put into place. There's going to be a great number of signs throughout our facility. I've already mentioned no visitors, wellness checks. We've got to remove all the soft items that we use in our classrooms just because we don't know how the coronavirus is spread. I don't think I've said COVID-19 in all of this. We've got to look at sensory items and sharing of materials and how we're going to clean and disinfect. We've had a great deal of conversation on this. We've got to put practices in place. The great thing is we have a lot of these practices in place. It's just going to be more, it's going to be in a more heightened and more diligent in being on top of how to lessen the exposure for our program and for the children, staff, families, and students in our program. We're going to be preparing individual materials throughout our program, and this is very different than what we've had before, but we're going to get through it. We're going to think about how to do this creatively and what it might look like for our program. The other areas that have come up is, you know, once materials are used, to put it in that it's already been used, a soil toy bucket, and when disinfecting will take place, and it has to air dry, and all that criteria, as I said, we've had into place. It's just on a much larger scale than we're used to. We've got to set up areas for nap time where children are at least 6 feet apart or head to toe, but making space available in our classrooms, how we set up our classrooms. We can do this. It's like I said, it's just going to look really different, and it's, again, thinking about covering carpeting. Last summer, we closed down for a remodel inside of carpeting, flooring, and painting. So we're going to have to look at how we can take care of all that and keep things clean. I already mentioned this, the daily screening at entry when parents and staff and children all come into the environment. We've already thought about how, a lot of our time is going to be spent outside. We'll have our times inside, but much of our time will be outside. I think one of the things, especially as an adjunct faculty, I teach about working with infants and toddlers, and my go-to phrase is wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And we will be washing our hands, we'll be washing our hands, we'll be washing our hands, and thus then more. But, again, having the visual posted for children and the reminders to children and staff, but lots of hand washing. We'll have sanitizers. And then it's implementing physical distancing. It is social distance, but the physical aspect of distancing tends to be more relevant. I think if we talk about how we need to physically be separate from each other, which is new. That's the newness, especially for children. You can go ahead. And not touching our faces. As I was putting this conversation together, I was kind of practicing, and I kept touching my face and touching my face. And it's something that I think we don't realize we do as much as we do. So that's something I'm practicing. And protect yourself. We need to protect ourselves. It's cleaning and disinfecting. I've mentioned that. And it's really working as a team. And it's with the support of the facilities and grounds and our community, our campus community, that will be helping with this. This is an area that we just came to, family style meal service. That has been an important aspect of our program. And for fall semester, that won't be happening. It'll be teachers adults serving the meals, and we'll be using more paper products than we have ever used. But that is a recommendation of CDC, our community care licensing. So those are areas that will look different for children also, because we like to encourage children to be able to serve themselves and be independent in that way. And then it just gives us an overview of how to disinfect and what to disinfect, and a deep cleaning schedule, which we'll do before we reopen. So that more or less provides an overview. We do store children's bedding separate from other children's, so that won't. I think one of the big, we do laundry here, but one of the big areas is not to shake out the laundry before we put it in the washer, so that'll be different. And it's going to be educating ourselves, staff included, parents, children, about symptoms and staying home. If you come down, we will be have areas of heightened, our health policies will be heightened. Children will need, this is something they'll have to plan for, to be home for 72 hours. It's no longer 24 hours when a fever or a cold happens in our program. So that's going to be different. And it's, again, a lot of communication. And I am going over this in our conversation. A lot of this has not been talked with directly with our families, but it will be talked directly. There's lots of information out there. And we'll work collaboratively with K-12, because K-12 is impacted by this as well as us. But the communication, the reciprocal process of making sure everyone has the same information, being as transparent as possible, and maintaining that open conversation, so we can, as I said, get through this together, as well as taking care of ourselves and making sure that we're checking in with each other as a staff. Because we are used to be able to talk or meet or group together throughout the day, and we're basically going to be in our, each person is going to be in their individual areas of the environment. That's different for us. So we can scroll through those. I think that kind of covers. Luckily, I'm fortunate enough, or we're fortunate enough, that I've been talking with other directors in the community, lots of conversations, and programs have started to reopen. Some have reopened, and there's a lot of trial and error that they're doing, and it'll be great. It'll be great to get the information or collect the information from them, where we don't have to recreate forms, and especially forms or ideas that they've already tried or put into place. And as you know, Governor Newsom put a pause on reopening a lot of things. And again, I'm optimistic that childcare will go forward. Families, I've set out a couple of surveys for families. Families are looking forward to being able to access childcare services in the fall, which is really important. We're ready to face-to-face to see our families and children. So thinking about all of that, I guess that's kind of who we are, where we were, and where we're going. And it's going to take all of us. It's going to take our community. It's going to take our campus. It's going to take the childcare, early childhood education community, all to work together to make this successful. It's not a standalone, I guess, job for any of us. For our program, I would just like to thank the administration of Santa Barbara City College for their continued support. Our dean, Ellen Price, has been very supportive of our program. And then we can't do our work without facilities, without our facilities, our grounds crew. We work closely with the EOPS care program in supporting single parent families. And if I missed anybody, security is helps us, maintain the buildings. So that's where we are. I'd just like to thank everybody that's been part of this process. And that was a great deal of information to cover, but that's where we're at this time. So, Jeff?
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate
I don't know
it.
if I covered everything or we need more or.
Oh, no, we'll just have a conversation now. No, that's great. I really appreciate that. So I want to start with the big picture. You mentioned a few things when you began the presentation, and I appreciate all the detail on what we're expecting going forward. Obviously, there's so many unknowns. From what you just shared, I have to say you sound better prepared and clear on what comes next than virtually any other field that I've engaged with recently. So that's a wonderful sign. But you mentioned that at the top of your comments that the center is actually open for students, staff, faculty, and ultimately the community when there's room. And can you just briefly share with the group what you have seen in the time that you've been there as far as trends around that demand? Have there been times where there is actually a spot for a community member, or is it just so over impacted and needed by so many that rarely happens?
So, Jeff, our priority is to serve students of Santa Barbara City College. That's our first priority. So that's why that's what we try and focus on in meeting the mission of our program. And then it's open to faculty and staff. Community, it's a happenstance if they get in or not get in. Our infant program is inundated with faculty, staff, and students. I will say community, and when they call, I let them know that the availability. We have a small infant program, so that it's just really, it's a challenge to have a community member, and it's sometimes a challenge for our faculty and staff to even get in. So that's where we're at. And infant care in Santa Barbara County on many levels is very challenging. It's not just our program. So that's something to take into consideration.
Yeah. Well, actually, on that note, I have a few questions about the educational side of it, but let me actually share some data here for those. I know there's folks on the call that do study this, but I'm going to use the County Child Care Needs Assessment that was completed in 2017 by the County Education Office.
Yes.
We refer to it when we talk about the big picture. But a couple of statistics that even to this day, really, when you stop and think about the problem the challenges these pose for our community. So four data points I'll share. One, that countywide, there are approximately 18,000 spaces available for about 35,000 children who at any one time may need them. These are 2017 numbers. That the greatest need and the greatest lack of space is in the infant and toddler space, as you just mentioned, for a variety of reasons. But essentially in Santa Barbara County, there's really only space for about 1 in 5 infants and toddlers who may need early child care. And then two, just economic data points. One is that the monthly average cost for infants throughout the county as of the time of this report was $1,171. So almost $1,200 a month for a single infant space. And combine that with the fact that for a median income household of $61,782, so almost $62,000 in Santa Barbara County, that it is entirely possible that if you had 2 children, infant, toddler, and a preschooler, that you might find yourself as a family spending up to 34% of your income on childcare, and that's provided there was a space available. So I want to always ground us in that reality because, no matter how outstanding programs are, and obviously this is one of the true leaders, we then have, even if you take care of the quality question, then you have the availability question, and on top of that, you have the dollars question. How do you, when you approach that, and especially this could be whether you're talking to students, I know, you are a trainer of future childhood educators, and how do you look at that? I mean, do you address that problem, that challenge in any way? Do you talk about that in the coursework within the school?
Well, I talk about it in the courses I teach. I think as a department, we do talk about that, about what's available in the Santa Barbara area and what's needed in the Santa Barbara area. And Jeff, I appreciate you going over those numbers. The impact to childcare is going to be so much greater because our class sizes are going to diminish not diminish, I shouldn't say, but they're going to be much smaller as we move forward than what they have in the past. We have served 13 to 14 in a classroom, and we're going down to 10 or eight, I guess, to meet our other funding, 8 or 9. And that is really going to impact accessibility to many individuals in this county. And I'm not even sure what that's going to look like. And then that's going to impact budgets for programs, which is going to impact the amount of teachers programs need. I mean, it's kind of a domino effect. But yes, it is discussed about, what's available, what's not available, where if you want to think about opening a program, the area of expertise or specialty could be around a certain age group. So yeah, it is discussed.
So you're talking potentially in this COVID-19 moment, a capacity cut, in an already impacted space by what, 30-40%? It sounds like in some cases closer to half.
Yes.
As far as what we have.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There was an article this morning in the New York Times. Many people may have seen it. The title caught my eye, and I didn't even have a chance to read it yet. But the title was, "In the COVID-19 economy, you can have a kid or a job. You can't have both." Obviously, I assume referring to the fact of the dual impact of the economic shutdown and the childcare shutdown when the pandemic began. So clearly there's some things to navigate. I do want to talk about the educational side of the program because I think it's important for people to understand. In fact, let's do that first. There's some questions popping up in the chat, which I do want to share. Most of them are around the COVID-19 impacts, but can you share a little bit about what the demand for the program is from the student side? What is our typical enrollment of future ECE educators, and what do you see? Do you see trends over time? Is this a field increasing, decreasing in popularity? Is employment guaranteed when you walk out the door?
Jeff, I focus more on the childcare aspect. The early childhood education aspect is covered more by the department. I see this as a field that will, I think the early childhood education field keeps America working. And I think COVID-19 and the impact it's had, I think it's going to be interesting to see quality teachers are going to be needed either in our school settings or in our home settings. As you reference that New York Times article, it is a balance because if there's not childcare, children are at home. And then in our age of remote work, who's caring for the children, and can you feasibly work remotely and care for children? I mean, it's all intertwined. So I would say that the need, the interest in early childhood education, I think continues to grow or stabilize. I don't think it's going to be an area that's not going to be needed in the future. I think that answers your question, Jeff.
I think that's safe to say. No, I'll definitely agree with you. And to personalize this a bit, I'm a parent of a 6 and a 9-year-old now, and so we're in the early elementary school year.
Yes.
And I certainly think about that from a personal perspective, because I feel very fortunate having a job that was secure and a partner who could instantly pivot to become a kindergarten and 3rd grade teacher. But when I think about my colleagues and my friends who are single parents who are working full-time, one or more jobs, and what that impact is, it's obviously very big. Well, let me pivot a little bit to some of the questions that are coming in around your adaptation for the pandemic and the potential reopening this fall. First of all, are teachers getting tests before they come to work? How are you managing teacher health in the program as you look toward the fall?
We haven't really looked into that at this point. It has come up from staff, and conversation will take place. More than likely, we will. I'm thinking if we're going to be face-to-face, that probably not face-to-face. We'll be face-to-face with masks on, but it will probably be something we really have to consider and look at before we reopen, because we can deep clean and we can sanitize, but we need to make sure we're all healthy at the same time. But that has been part of our conversation. We just haven't made a decision on that yet. We're essentially closed for the month of July. So come August, this is all going to be taking place. So that's a really good question. My suspicion is yes, we will be tested. But I'm not going to guarantee that. I don't know. Yeah.
So still figuring it out. That's fair.
Yeah, figuring it out. A lot of this is figuring it out. Yes, Jeff.
Absolutely. Let me ask you a question. I almost don't dare ask this because, of course, in my household, we've talked about this, about returning to school. How do you keep toddlers, infants, young children physically distanced? Well, the masks are one challenge, but how do we conceive of making that possible?
Jeff, I think we're going to do as best as possible. I think it's important that we're not policing children, because that's not a part of what early childhood education is about. But the visuals for children will be important, and just reminding children to be in their space. But toddlers are not going to understand that to the degree of the older children. So we're just going to have to do our best. Adults are going to be wearing masks. As I said, our health policy is going to be heightened to ensure that the health, safety, and welfare of the families and children that are here are a priority. This is, it is a work in progress, and we're going to look at what has gone on in other programs. I was on I believe that it was a conference, Zoom meeting or webinar last week, and the director had gone into the classroom with the teachers, and this was preschool children, but one of the things she talked about was for the younger groups, they're doing the best they can, but it's, we don't want to be pushing children apart. We just have to put in, model practices about keeping our distance.
Sure.
It's a work in progress.
Absolutely. No, I understood. I want to thank Jean Kaplan, who's been joining us regularly for these. These are some of her questions. One more around sort of dollars and cents, actually probably more than one more. But you mentioned that you're primarily, the mission and what you primarily do is serve students, and then of course there's staff and faculty. Can you talk about the pricing structure for them coming to you? And of course I asked this partly with my foundation hat on, and the questions around scholarships and accessibility. How do you determine pricing, and is there any assistance available for folks coming to you for childcare?
So our childcare fees are set up to be the same across the board. The different stages is faculty and staff mostly, well, they do pay full costs. Many of our single parents that come through the CARE program. We're very fortunate that the CARE program supports their child being in childcare while they go to school and complete, begin, maintain, and complete their educational journey. So through the CARE program, that's part of how they're subsidized. We are also fortunate enough to have a contract with the California Department of Ed that is based on income eligibility for families that meet the criteria meet the criteria set by the state, and they may have no fee or they may have a small fee, small co-payment that they're responsible for. But that's for families that are eligible and for children that are 3 and older. So for children 3 and under, we look to CARE to support and help us with families that have children under with the age under 3, and then the California Department of Ed Early Learning Services supports children, families with children over 3.
And do you, Beth, of what I mentioned some data on accessibility and some of the challenges. Certainly some of it is just math. It's the fact that our median income in the county is actually relatively low because our economy is a relatively low wage economy. And then when we talk about housing being such an outsized cost for Santa Barbarans in general, to add childcare on top is largely the dynamics of the problem. But do you have a sense of what are some of the more accessible pricing models you've seen in you've been in this world a long time, and I wonder if you've seen any innovations there about what might make it more accessible. Obviously there are public supports and there are some things like that, but have you seen any innovative models of how to bring down the cost to an individual family?
At this point, no, I don't. I haven't seen any innovative programs. Childcare is for many families as much as college tuition at this time, which is where we're at. Programs, quality programs, set exceptional standards, and it costs. The costs keep going up to run a childcare program and sustain a childcare program. So that comes with fees. Any kind of financial assistance, like for instance, Jeff, through the foundation, again, through the CARE program from the state, that's ever changing. Fortunately, the state subsidies were going to be cut, and Governor Newsom did not cut those. So reimbursement rates are stabilized.
Yeah.
But that doesn't cover the cost of childcare. And covering the cost of childcare, the innovative idea is to make it accessible for all, but I don't know how you do that in times, in the economic times that we're at, and make it accessible to all.
Thank you for that. So there's a couple more questions, and I do want to put these out. Now, I'm going to apologize to some of our question askers because there's some shop jargon in here that I don't know, but I'm going to give you the verbatim question, Beth. So this is something that says, and I will quote, it's from Lisa Schaefer. PIN, capital P, capital I, capital N, 2006 expired on June 30, 2020. Do you think CCL will extend this? And maybe you can decode that for those of us not in that.
Yes, Lisa, yes. What's interesting, and I'm glad Lisa did mention that, but what's interesting, a lot of the regulations that were in place all expired on June 30th, 2020. So now the document I showed previously gives us ideas about opening and reopening, but we're all waiting to see what the new criteria is going to be, and I have not seen anything. But I'm sure The PIN comes from community care licensing. I just want to give a little bit of information on that. They come from community care licensing, and gives us guidance about what needs to take place at a given time. So it was suspended, and I don't know what the answer to that question is. And I don't have PIN number 2006 in front of me, so.
All righty, well, thank you. Thank you. I just learned something. I appreciate it. Can I guess that PIN, P-I-N, stands for Public Information Notice?
Notice, yeah, or network.
Okay.
Public information, something, yes.
All right, I got it. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa, for that. I want to say also we're really, I'm very happy that we have with us today the director of First Five for Santa Barbara, and that's Wendy Sims-Moten, who many people on here know, also as a school board member. She put a question there. There's, of course, been some connection between First Five and the center over in various ways. I know Kelly Lake served on the advisory board over there before retirement. But Wendy's question is, when your students do come back, will they be all coming back at the same time? Will you be staggering? If you are staggering, how do you communicate and support families through that process? What is the plan as of now for that?
Wendy, that's a really good question. We are we staggering? So when she's asking about students, I use children and families, and then students is for our students through the labs for the early childhood education students. So I'm thinking she's talking about check-ins with children and families, and that will be staggered. It will be physical distancing, and parents will have to wait their turn. Yeah, it's going to look very different. We open at 7:30, families come in and drop off their children, and now there's going to be a whole step-by-step process that takes place. So it will be staggered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to also, one of my colleagues here, who's actually a former Spark student, Wendy Aguilera, who's a staff member now with us at the foundation, and we're very happy about that, was asking, because of that decreased capacity and the fact that, any classroom that might have once held 20 will hold 12 or 10 or whatever it may be, how do you prioritize, if you're already capacity and your capacity is diminished, how do you prioritize who gets to come back and have access during this period when there's a decreased capacity?
Well, for us, for fall semester, we are at capacity at this point with the children that we currently have enrolled. As I mentioned in the conversation, is that I did survey the families to see if they're interested in returning and are interested in childcare services. And everyone got back to me, yes, they are still interested in childcare services. So at this point, we are looking at meeting the children's and families that are currently enrolled. And it looks, we do have space for the children that are currently enrolled and want to return. And then it's just going to be a fill-in of if spaces become available. And that I'm in the process of figuring that out now. And it'll be a combination between, it'll be a combination of looking at students that want to come back. And as we move closer to August, families may decide not to come back into a childcare environment. So, we are at capacity, or we're so close to capacity that we are right now able to serve all the families that have been enrolled in our center. So I don't have to I don't have to let someone know that they can't return. It's just a matter of figuring out, about siblings and other things that might come up that will have to be worked out. But
right.
Does that answer the question, Jeff? I think it answers the question.
It does. And actually, maybe just to add to that, can you comment on the wait list question? And do you maintain a wait list? If so, how do you do that?
We do. Yeah, we do have a wait list. It's linked to our OELC /SBCC website. It's all online now. You just go in and sign up online, and I watch the wait list. I monitor the wait list. We're in, as I said, I'm not sure, who we can serve come fall. But yes, we do have a wait list that is quite long and will continue to grow as we get ready to start back up in fall, I'm sure, just like other programs in our community.
Thank you. Well, we're getting close to our hour, but there's one more question coming through the chat that I want to ask you, and then I want to make sure we have time for you to have any final words or things to share. And let me, before I ask this last question, let me just offer to those listening a couple of things that not everyone may know. First is the current thinking for fall for Santa Barbara City College as a whole. The president's most recent communication is that the vast majority of the college will be remote and online through the fall. We haven't had a formal announcement about spring of 21 yet. The exception to that will be that lab classes and certain small courses or things in the CTE fields that really can't be done remotely or can't be done well will be the exception. So there will be a minimal number of in-person courses. So that's the context for this fall as far as we know right now. The other thing, though, more related to our current conversation, Beth, and we haven't mentioned yet in this conversation, although we spoke offline in advance of this, the parent-child workshops.
Yes.
This incredibly innovative model that have now had 70 years of success in the community. They've had a long-standing partnership with you and our program at the college. I want to say that we have Justin Rizzo Weaver on with us on the call today, who's been one of the leaders at Star King. I've had an opportunity to work with him. Can you talk just briefly about that linkage before I pose one last big question for you?
Actually, I've been in conversation with both Yolanda Medina Garcia and Sunny Crandell about what we're going to look like in helping them figure out what they're going to look like, back to what we're going to look like, and asking questions at community care licensing about the number of children we can serve, about the emphasis of not mingling groups of children, which is really different for parent-child workshops and ourselves. But a lot of conversation, we're working together in just trying to maintain our programs, have lab students work with us for parent-child workshops, have parents work with them. So it's basically ongoing conversation as we work through this new way of offering childcare. Sunny and Yolanda have been in the childcare field as long or longer than I have. So we're all trying to support one another as we kind of get back, start revving up again for fall semester about what our programs are going to look like and how we're going to welcome children and families, but also look at the health and safety. So it's, we converse and have conversations either through email or by phone. And a lot of it has been around the COVID-19 guidelines and how different childcare. I think that has been our ongoing thread, is how different childcare is going to look come fall semester. And in the years that I've been in this, Jeff, this is probably our biggest challenge or biggest, we can look at it as a challenge or an opportunity, but yeah, it's going to be new. I think that answers the question, but it's ongoing conversation of meeting the needs of the children and families of our communities.
Well, thank you for also mentioning Sunny, because Sunny's been on the call with us today too. So.
Oh, good. Hi, Sunny.
So Justin's question. This will be the last question I toss your way from the chat, and then I'll give you a chance to close here. But you mentioned earlier the rising cost of childcare. Of course, I think most people are aware of that, either from personal experience or just from the public narrative they may hear. But the dynamics of that, there are some specific things happening in the field that maybe, could you outline what some of that, the reasons for those increasing costs have been, some of the things you've seen over the time that you worked that have made childcare more expensive? I'm talking the real cost of running a center or an operation. What what has caused that upward increase that seems to have far outstripped, average inflation or cost of living or anything else?
Jeff, I think we want to talk about the Strong Workforce Initiative and worthy wage. Childcare workers, childcare specialists, childcare teachers are one of the lowest paid in California in this field. And if we want things to change in the quality, in the services that we can provide, we must be able to pay our teachers who are caring for young children a worthy wage. And it looks different throughout California. Santa Barbara has a high poverty rate, but a high cost of living rate. So balancing that out. But I think it has to do with a worthy wage. We as early childhood professionals in the field of early care and education, working with children and families, we put a lot of heart and soul into our work, and I think it's to recognize that this is not a field for everyone. The education we put forth, the planning we put forth, the relationship building, the foundations of trust, and kind of leading the way of helping parents become advocates for their children. It takes a lot of emotional work, social work. We wear a variety of hats in any given day. So I just have to say, part of it is, in order to pay a worthy wage, we also have to bring in the money in order to do so. So it's, the cost of food goes up, the cost of rent goes up, the cost of living goes up, cost of materials. I mean, it's all interconnected. When costs go up, it affects childcare programs as a whole. So I have to say that tuition increases based on trying to balance your budget and pay teachers a worthy wage and what they're worth. I think that's where I want to. I think that's kind of encompasses what's important in this field.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think it's important to say with that piece about wages, I think many people do know or have heard, but yeah, childcare workers obviously are among the lowest paid, and yet, and they're not alone in that. The fact that some of our most needed, critical public and community and family service workers are the ones that are least financially rewarded, and it's obviously something we need to work on.
Yep.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for everything, and all of you who've been with us today. I'm really delighted that you've all taken the time on this eve of a extended holiday weekend. But Beth, I do want to give you the last word. Is there anything you would like to share with the assembled group before we close out here about what they should know, or how to reach out, or what you need, or anything?
Okay. Well, one of the things I want to go back and say is, I kind of gave an overview, and I didn't really talk about COVID-19. And what I was talking about is where we were before COVID-19, where we are in COVID-19, and where we're going to go with COVID-19. I want to emphasize the importance of wearing a mask. We are coming into a big Independence Day weekend. Practice physical distancing. Emphasize wash your hands, wash your hands, wash your hands. And I think it's just continued support from our community far and wide about the work that we do and the services that we provide. And it's a critical component of student success on this campus and employment success out in the community, and basically statewide. We care for others. I think it's important that we remind ourselves that how children are cared for now or the caregivers who will, or the children that we care for now are going to be caring for us as we age. And I think that's all, always a important reminder to share. But just, you know, be safe, be well, be kind. That's what I probably will end up with, Jeff.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you so much. I will say that one of my other connections back to you and your work was when my 6 and 9-year-olds were in their preschool experience, that each of them had multiple teachers who had been trained and had gone through the program at Santa Barbara City College. So we got to quickly bond over, oh, you must know Beth. and others as well. So yeah. Thank you for your work. Thank you for what you do. I know we will continue to have conversations of the big dreams of what the foundation and the donors of this community can do to support you and your work, and we'll continue that. But to everyone who joined us today, thank you so much for this conversation. The COVID conversations, we have them now every other week. We've got 2 more planned in July. So I can tell you on the July 16th, 2 weeks from today, we will have President and Superintendent Paul Goswami back with us to give an update of where things stand with the campus and looking into the fall. On the 30th of July, we will have our SBCC athletics talking about what they're seeing. Of course, they're going to be heavily impacted by this as well. So there are more to come. This will be edited and beautifully posted up on our website at sbccfoundation.org within the next day or so. I want to thank Jennifer LeMay for that, our Director of Marketing Communications. Also Raisa Smorrell, our Senior Director of Individual Philanthropy, who you mentioned at the top, who you met at the top of the hour. And of course, Rachel Johnston, our Director of Grants, who's my other co-conspirator in this project. So thank you all on behalf of the SBCC Foundation and Santa Barbara City College. Thank you again, Beth Rizo, for your fabulous work and all of your colleagues as well. And we will see you again soon.
I want to thank everyone for joining us also. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you.
Great.
Have a good night.
Have a good weekend, all.